Roads University is located in the land on the Squamish and the Songhees people. And it's with gratitude that traditional and indigenous and non-indigenous people come together to learn more about Royal Roads, come together to learn more about the past, how we got to work together in the present, and how we can build our future together. So welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I would like also to use this time to ask people to introduce yourself in the chat box. So feel free to tell us maybe which traditional land are you joining us today, which city in Canada or which city around the world you are, and what is your name, of course. We want to get to know you as you get to know us. So my name is Andrea Torres. I'm the student recruitment at Royal Roads, manager at Royal Roads University. And it's with gratitude that I'm co-hosting this session today with Dr. Mary Bernard. So Mary, I will pass over to you so you can introduce yourself. Oh, and you are muted, Mary.
Of course I'm muted. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mary Bernard, and I've been with the Doctor of Social Science program since its development, and also helped with the development of the program. I've kind of searched the world over for an appropriate doctorate for Royal Roads University, one that was able to emphasize the applied and interdisciplinary nature of our university as a whole. I'd also like to note that Carol Sandu, the manager of the College of Interdisciplinary Studies, is with us here today and is also available to answer questions, including on the chat. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you, Mary. And so, yeah, we have a few more people, as you said, Mary, in the chat box, helping us to, if you have any technical difficulties, Francisco Levy will be helping you to assist you as well as Carol Sandu will help us with some of the questions. And we have a very exciting two graduates from the DSocSci program join us today that you're going to hear more about them in a little bit. But Dr. Heather, I would like you maybe, if you would like to introduce shortly who you are, and I know you are going to be sharing more details about all your story and why the DSocSci program, but over to you, Heather, now.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrea. Excited to be here today. So I am Heather Lennon. I am a very recent graduate from the DSocSci program at Royal Roads, just finishing up, it'll be a year ago in August. So I'm here in Toronto and excited to share my experience through the program and a little bit about my research and my dissertation, and answer any questions that people who are considering coming to this program might have. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you, Heather. And I would like to pass over now to Dr. Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Liz. I live in Victoria, so I'm local to Royal Roads, which was really great. Yeah, I finished in March of 2020, just as COVID was hitting us. So I recently got to go through the new alumni ceremony and officially wear the hat and have the hooding and the whole thing. So that was really exciting to make it kind of more official. Yeah, and I'm happy to share about my dissertation, my monograph, and answer any questions about that. I can't speak highly enough about my experience at Royal Roads.
Thank you, Elizabeth and Heather, and we are very excited to hear a little more about your experience in a few more slides. So the agenda for today, first, I'm going to talk really briefly about Royal Roads University, and then Mary will talk about the program-specific details, and then we're going to hear not from our students, because as they mentioned, they're already a grads from Royal Roads, so we are going to get to know more the experience as a student and now what they're doing as an alumni. And at the end, I'm going to talk a little more about the application process and the requirements. And if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to add those questions in our chat box. So Royal Roads University, we're located in Victoria, BC. We have a beautiful campus, and this time of the year is more beautiful than ever. The flowers are blooming. It's a perfect balance between the green of our lands and as well the blue skies. When people come to Victoria and you are in the residency on campus, I always encourage people to come and walk around the land. Just make the land as part of your learning process. Go for a walk. If there is maybe ideas that are not as clear as you want them to be that day, just take that time to go outside and have a walk with one of your classmates, your faculty, and just enrich that learning process through our lens. You also see a picture of a laptop. So Royal Roads University has been teaching in a blended model for the last 27 years. We are pioneers in the online learning, and I would say part of our secret sauce is that we are able to create an online community. So you are going to be learning from your peers and your classmates, as well as you do with your faculty while you are at Royal Roads University. We want to make sure that your learning experience is as personalized as possible. So you are going to find a lot of curiosity from faculty and staff about who you are, about your dissertation process, and how we can help you to succeed in your personal and professional life, how we can be part of that journey and support you to be successful. Royal Roads University is a change maker campus, Ashoka U. So what that means is that our programs are designed to have an innovative approach to make sure through the learning outcomes, people are able to solve the problems that our communities and our countries are having currently. So you are going to find that a lot of our programs are applied learning. So what you are learning here, what you are learning today, you like apply back tomorrow into your workplace, in your community, and make those real changes. So with that said, I would like to pass over to Mary that is going to talk more about the Doctor of Social Science program. Over to you, Mary.
Thanks so much, Andrea. I wonder if I could see the next slide. Great, thank you. I started when I first spoke earlier to mention that we kind of searched the world over to find the right doctoral program for Royal Roads. And at the end of the day, we ended up with this Doctor of Social Sciences. And I want to emphasize here, it's not a PhD. Doctorates come in two forms throughout the world. They come as PhDs and they come as professional doctorates. So let me just explain the difference. If you were at U of T, for example, and you wanted to have a doctorate in teaching, in education, my apologies, you would have a choice of either doing a PhD in education or an EDD, an education doctorate in education. And the difference is that the latter is much more applied and professional, connected to a career, whereas the former, the PhD, tends to be perhaps more theoretical or more broadly, can be more broadly based. So what we said was, let's combine the two. Let's get the best of both worlds. So our degree is a hybrid, taking the really strong research base of the traditional PhD and marrying it with the applied and professional focus of the professional doctorate program. And it has served us very well. At the same time, there's a word, nomenclature. We needed to follow, we just couldn't make up a degree name. We had to find a degree where there was a standards in place and a recognized credential. And we spoke to different universities in Finland and the UK, New Zealand, Australia, where there was Doctor of Social Sciences. And they advised us actually very kindly on the development of ours. We are the only Doctor of Social Sciences in Canada at this period of time. We focus on bringing together your existing knowledge about your career or your sector together with what you want to do to perhaps advance your career, your passion on a particular problem or issue that needs to be solved. And when Heather and Liz speak to their specific programs, projects that they did, you'll be able to get a really good sense of that, because they were both so passionate about their projects, and both projects were career enhancing as well. Thanks, Andrea. Is there another slide for me? Excellent. So here we've given a list of some of the areas that you can work in. It's unlimited. We have no disciplines at Railroads. You won't find an English department or a biology department. Rather, we have about 65 programs across the university that are interdisciplinary thematic programs. For example, you could get an MA in human security and peace building. You could get an MA in environmental management. And then within that, you pick your particular focus on the research that you want to do. The Doctor of Social Sciences is no different. It's an applied interdisciplinary degree. And the only thing that we asked is that it stay within the social sciences by and large. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't do some science-based work, especially if you were interested in environmental management or sustainability. But there's also always that human element that comes into the study as well. This list here could be 50 times as long easily, but here's just a sample of some of the areas that people are working in within their DSocSci. Thanks, Andrea. And our framework. Well, it's kind of the neat part of doing a doctorate at Railroads is that we're cohort-based, meaning that you enter with one group of people, usually around maybe about 12 people, could be as high as 15, and you stay with that group of people throughout your degree. Now, sometimes people have to deviate a little bit. They might have to take a term off because life happens. But by and large, it's cohort-based. So the cohorts, for example, that Heather and Liz were with, they would have stayed with those cohorts, especially during your first couple of years in the program. The first year you're taking courses, and you all take the same courses. You take everybody, you're all together to take a theory course, a paradigm course, then you take a directed study course, which is your own content area, a social change course, qualitative and quantitative methods courses. It's important to note that quantitative methods are part of this program, and that but don't let that scare you if you're not up on your statistics. That particular course is designed for those people who may not have had a previous background in statistics as well. So we're on this hybrid model where we have intensive residencies once each year for the first 2 years, 3 weeks on campus, and then you're back in your home community or your home workplace for the rest of your degree. And so it's also, I guess the other thing I should mention here is we have a flexible supervision model. Once you decide you're ready to do a candidacy exam and to write your proposal, which is, really a full year after you're in the program. Initially, when your application is just a preliminary, proposal. But you begin to fine tune. Sometimes people, change it completely. So you have almost a full year to do that. And every course you take helps you to further define what your research will be. And you can take information from your course product and, use it directly towards that degree. But when you do come down to getting a supervisor plus 2 committee members for your dissertation, you can choose from the core faculty members at Railroads. We also have a large number of associate faculty members who are affiliated with Railroads. They may be at another university, but they'll do supervision for us. And as well, if among those many hundreds of people, we just did a new database with about 300 people in that we have used on a fairly regular basis. You can, if no one quite fits your bill, you can reach out to other universities and tell them that we at Railroads will help reimburse the faculty member in return for their supervision of you. I would make sure that they met our criteria. They had a PhD, they were at the associate or full professor level, and so on. Okay, Andrea, I think back to you, or might have one more. Oh, is this mine or yours, Andrea? I think it's mine. The program is 4 years long. It sometimes, very rarely, somebody will finish it a little bit ahead of time, 3 years and a half or 3 years and a quarter. More often, somebody would go into their 5th year. It really depends on you, but we like to have the goal of 4 years. And as I mentioned before, there's 2 3-week residencies once a year in the first 2 years. During COVID, we had to switch to online residencies. My wish is we don't do that again. That our COVID, we'll have our first in-person residency in August. So I'm really looking forward to being back in person for that. Student funding. This is not this degree is, cost a fair amount. And while there are different applications that you can apply to for the federal government, for what we call tri-council grants, we've listed some of them there, and my tax grants, I always want to emphasize that you should be sure that if you're applying to this program, that you're able to self-finance it as well, in case you do not win any of the grants. Our success rate with the federal grants is the same as all small and medium-sized universities, the average in Canada, but it's still competitive. So we always feel wonderful that we're kind of in the same category, our students are in the same category of success as others, but want to make sure that before you apply, that you're comfortable that if you have to self-fund, that you're able to do that. Okay, and now I will let Elizabeth and Heather take over. I'll just go in the order that I see them on the screen. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. I did my dissertation by monograph. I work in real life. I work with individuals with developmental disabilities, in particular autism spectrum disorder. And I'm the parent of a young adult with autism and intellectual disability. And my work at Royal Roads was around identity formation of youth with developmental disabilities, and how that's formed and influenced by the medical model, and how can we envision, or how do they envision themselves compared to how society envisions them. So I use narrative inquiry to work with 10 youth to hear their stories. So my dissertation is called A Storied Life, Learning from the Voices of Youth with Developmental Disabilities. And so I met with my participants at least 4 times over the year that I worked, collected my data, and to create my database for my dissertation. I have mixed methods. I use some stats and I use narrative inquiry. My narrative inquiry people on my committee hated that I use stats, but the education-based people on my committee liked that I used stats. So there was a little bit of both audiences that needed to be pleased there. I finished in 3 years and a quarter. So I finished in the faster group for sure. I'm one of those people that once you get started, it's like, I'm just gonna get her done. And Mary gave me really great advice. She's like, get up and write every morning. Like, don't just get up and write every morning. So 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. every day for a year. And that got me through this in a timely manner. Yeah. I don't know what else you want to know about I brought it. It's narrative inquiry produces kills a lot of trees in the end, because the data collection is fairly large and the stories are fairly large. Yeah, I really like Royal Roads in particular. The cohorts and your group and the support from your group are fantastic. Like that, it's friendships that'll last forever as you make your way through, especially stats, as you make your way through the stats course together. It was a really great journey. And yeah, I can't speak highly enough of the opportunity to study at Royal Roads and the impact it's had on my career and my ability. I own my own company in Victoria working with youth with developmental disabilities, and we serve about 360 families, and we're really trying to reshape how individuals with developmental disabilities are viewed by community, and not as objects, but to be able to celebrate who they are as people with diverse needs, and not feel shame or stigma associated with having an identified disability. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I should mention Elizabeth developed that company while she was doing the PhD. A few little side things. So 3 years and a quarter. I didn't realize, Elizabeth, that you were that fast. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Okay, so perhaps we'll ask Heather to speak, and then we'll open up for questions to both of you. Over to you, Heather.
Perfect. Thank you, Mary. So like Elizabeth, my idea for my research project came from personal experience. I'll preface, I guess, the research side of things with a little bit about me. In 2014, my husband needed a heart transplant, and I relocated from Newfoundland, where we lived with him, to Toronto, where I am now. And I really, saw the challenges of all that firsthand. So I wanted my project to be based on that, the challenges of moving to access medical care. So my project was titled Home is Where the Heart Is, and it's the connection between home and the transplant journey. So I, similar to Liz, conducted about 20 qualitative interviews with individuals, patients, and their caregivers who relocated to access heart transplants. And in addition to that, I then wanted to analyze myself, which is really interesting when you do that. So in addition to the narrative inquiry, I used autoethnography to analyze all my journals that I had documented during the whole experience. So a little bit of a mixed method approach too, not using the stat side, but using 2 different methodologies. And I did something different. I didn't do the monograph. I went the portfolio route, which I think was just starting at Royal Roads around the same time my cohort entered the program. And why I chose that route, it was important for me to make sure that whatever I found, the recommendations, the findings, the resources, whatever it was that I created from my project, that it reached patients and caregivers. I didn't want, something that wasn't easily accessible. So part of the portfolio route allowed me to use a couple of different pieces or elements to showcase my results. So I did do some more academic focused items like writing journal articles, presenting at conferences, that kind of thing. But then I tried to do some more general public mainstream ideas. So I actually hired a videographer and made a short documentary, which was so fun and so fantastic. And it's on YouTube and I'm happy to share. And then I also did things like podcasts and other media type, more social media type things. So I can't speak highly enough of Royal Roads. I finished pretty much right on time. I started the program in July of 2017 and finished it in August 21. So I was right at that 4-year mark. And since then, I was sharing with Andrea just before we started, I defended my theses on a Tuesday, and I started my new role in a hospital. I'm here at St. Mike's in Toronto, working in cardiovascular surgery, where I coordinate all the surgeries for our heart patients who are coming from everywhere, a lot of local, but we get a lot of people from out of town as well. So really just walking through the whole journey from referral to follow up with them. So I'll leave it at there for now. I could say 500 million things, but I want to hear what other people have to say and questions, and really happy to be here. So thanks, Mary and Andrea, for having me.
Excellent. So let's open it up to questions.
Yeah. So if anyone would like to unmute yourself, or if you would like to speak and ask a question, please raise your hand, and we will make sure that we are kind of facilitating that way the conversation. In the meantime, that we get questions from our audience, some people shared previous webinars 2 questions with me. The first one is, how did you balance work, home, and school? So maybe we can start with you, Heather, this time.
So finance, I did pay for it.
Sorry, no. How did you balance work, like the hours, kind of the working time? You can chat a little bit about the finance if you want to as well, but it was mostly about how you balance your work, your family, and school.
So I started in 2017, it was a challenge when I was working full time, just to kind of balance everything. I have a social work background, so I've always worked in healthcare, which is a busy sector. But things kind of worked out. COVID was a little bit of a blessing in terms of getting the interviews done. I had no trouble setting up interviews with people. They were all on Zoom, but everybody was stuck home. So it worked out really good in that sense. And then while COVID was happening, things obviously changed very much in the healthcare sector, and I ended up working an evening shift, 3 to 10. So like Elizabeth, I would get up in the morning, like 8 a.m. till probably noon, 1 p.m. and work on my dissertation, analyze the transcripts or write or, look at theory or whatever it might be. I'm very lucky. I don't have kids. It's just me. So I didn't have any other responsibilities like that. And like I said, for the majority of the time that I was actually doing from comp exams on, I was stuck at home with nothing else to do. So lucky in that sense. But I think it's definitely doable to work and also do this program at the same time. It's 3 weeks, like Mary said, twice, 2 summers in a row. So I planned my vacation around that, and it worked out really well for me.
Elizabeth?
Sure, I can answer the same question. I didn't have I finished right at the start of COVID, so I worked full time. I quit my job in my first year and started my own company. That was, I don't know what I was thinking, but I did. And so it was crazy. My second year was quite crazy, actually, starting a new company in the middle of all of, doing this. But I find, and I have, my son still lives with us. And so I have the care of him as well as part of my responsibility. So it's definitely doable. I work crazy hours. I work 60 to 80-hour weeks. Most people have normal work lives. So I just got up super early because no one phones me at 4 o'clock in the morning. So, I can work consistently at that time. And once I had a routine, that was fine. I think the key to survival is setting up a routine that works for you and sticking to it. So some people are night owls. So if you are better at night, and that's not me, but if your brain works better at night, have that time and stick to it. Even if you're like, there were some days, I swear, I was there for 4 hours and wrote 2 sentences. It would be like a day where you're like, and you write it and you delete it, and you write it and you delete it. Like those days are going to happen, but I think the consistency of having a routine around it. I have to say year 2, it was kind of like, oh, hello, husband, very much so that way. But not so bad. My husband's starting the program in January. So we went through it once and, it wasn't that bad that we're going to go through it again as a family with him this time. So it is totally doable if you have routines and, hopefully the support of your partner going through it if you have a significant other in your life.
Elizabeth, I think you said something that is very key that a lot of people will share with us, that make sure that your stakeholders, and when I say stakeholders, can be family, can be colleagues, partners at work, and they know about the responsibilities that you are going to be taking for the next 4 years. So they can either be a support if you are maybe a little bit off or slow a day. They don't make assumptions. Or maybe the assumption is that you spend a few more extra hours that day writing or doing some research. So just make sure that the people that are around you, it can be work or it can be at home, understand the responsibilities, and they also understand how they can support you. And so I see Sandra has her hand up. So Sandra, over to you.
Thank you, Andrea. I think mine would mostly be to Heather. I'm just curious to know how the transition was for you, coming from the doctorate program to just kind of diving back into the work environment. I know it might be different for Elizabeth since she has her own company, but how did that change for you? Because I know usually when you go out there, most of the concerns would be maybe you're overqualified for roles and maybe not getting roles that are best suited to the skills that you acquired. So I'm just curious to know. And it was a bit surprising for me to hear that this is not an actual PhD. I think like a few other people, I was under the impression that it is, but it was a pleasant surprise anyway, because I like the professional route that this program takes, but I have the concern of the after, math of the program and how you made that transition. Thank you.
That is a wonderful question, and I'm glad you followed up with the piece about the professional degree, because I think that's what makes it important. I had been trying to get into a cardiac heart related field for a number of years, and was kind of getting really discouraged because on paper, I didn't actually have any academic qualifications in that area. Had lots of personal experience with my husband being ill for a very long time, but I didn't have anything to say that I was an expert in heart. So I really think having the doctorate, and on my resume, I did include what my research project was about so that people were aware that I was familiar in the cardiac side of things. Technically, yes, I am likely overqualified for my job because it is a master's level position. But I think people, especially in hospitals that are connected to a university. So St. Mike's is one of the hospitals here in Toronto that's U of T affiliated. They put a lot of value on it being a learning teaching hospital and people having those criteria. I didn't say when I introduced myself, but since that time, I'd say the last 6 months, probably January, I also took on a postdoc position through U of T on the side. Once you go to school, I don't think you ever stop. So so the last 6 months I've been working through U of T as well as my position here, doing research on women who are experiencing heart failure. So I think the two kind of go hand in hand. But there's definitely a lot of positions out there that are PhD doctorate level, that are non-academic. And I don't say that to push away the non-academic piece, but I knew I wanted to be more of a frontline patient-facing position. So they do exist, and I do think people do value it. Just you need to find someone who might think outside the box a little bit. And I think that's what happened to me. I was very fortunate when I took this position that they looked at that as a skill set. That answered your question.
And I wonder as well, Andrea, if I could just add something there. When I talked at the beginning about searching for the right degree for us at Royal Roads, we actually started out thinking that we would do the more of the traditional PhD. And we probably over time will add a PhD as well. For example, it could be a PhD in public policy. But there were several trends that made us go towards the Doctor of Social Sciences instead. So one is not lesser than the other. Like a professional doctorate is not less than a PhD. It's more that they have traditionally served different purposes. So when I gave the example of doing a PhD in education at U of T versus doing an education doctorate at U of T through OISE, one is just that much more practically oriented, and in the way that Heather has described. The other point is that when one does a PhD in Canada, or indeed in North America as a whole, 20% of PhD graduates, with some variation depending on the discipline, 20% of those graduates end up working full-time in what's called a tenured position in a university. The other 80% work in government positions, their own consulting firms, for science labs, etc. So we were very, very much aware as an applied and professional university that we really should be serving that 80% that will not go on a full-time tenure stream basis to work in a university. That said, our doctorates have ended up like those in other universities of working full-time in tenured positions within universities. We have them throughout Canada. Right now we have 2 of our own doctorates in full-time tenured positions at Royal Roads itself. One in the business school and one in the School of Leadership Studies. So I just wanted to, stop there and pause there on the difference, but also to emphasize that we're not talking about one is lesser than the other. They tend to serve different purposes, and also that really important decision, the set of facts and numbers and stats on what people did with their PhDs really influenced us to create a doctorate program that was applied in professional in its orientation and can be used in other settings as well. You know, in no way, shape, or form to take away the amazing PhDs that we have across Canada, or the professional programs that most universities have now, most universities across Canada have. But there's also that item that I'll note. We tried to merge the best of both, the strengths of the research base of the traditional PhD with the applied and professional orientation of the professional doctorate. Sorry, back to you, Andrea.
Thank you, Mary. We have, sorry, Elizabeth, is there anything you would like to add? I know you started your own company, so your experience might be slightly different, but anything that you would like to add, or are we okay to move to the next question?
Please go to the next question. Yeah.
Perfect. So the next question is from Brenda Lee, and she would like to learn more about what was your goal or purpose for undertaking this program and investment 4 years of your life. Who would like to start?
I'll go first on that one. The goal or purpose for investing 4 years of my life, my son, in a nutshell, was the purpose of that. As my son turned 19, so when you are a person with developmental disabilities, you at age 19, you're an adult, and then you transition into the next 70 years of your life in adult services, and it's a no man's land. It's just horrendous. And so I got to the point where he was 19, 20, and it scared the hell out of me, excuse me. And I was like, I don't know, I need to do something that can hopefully be a voice to make a difference and to advocate for this population. And so that's what drove me to do my doctorate and to invest the 4 years, because you definitely have to be passionate about what you're taking on, or I don't think you'll finish. Like, if you don't love it, it's a hard road to take on if you're not like in love with your topic and what you're doing and believing in what you're doing and are passionate about what you're doing.
Heather, over to you.
Yeah, Liz hit it on the head, passionate, because if you are not living, sleeping, eating, breathing what you're doing, it's not going to be an enjoying 4 years. I didn't say this in my introduction either, but my husband passed away from heart-related issues in May of 2017. I started the doctorate program in July. So I think I was probably crazy, but I certainly used my experience and my passion for trying to help others that were in a similar situation that we were, to really push me forward to put my head down and do the work. And looking back now, I'm thinking 4 years, and I'm sure Liz would say the same thing, it really didn't seem that long. Like, it just went in a blink. And for me, it was a legacy project. And like Liz, the passion of seeing, how the system dealt with her son really is what does push you. So find something that you love, and that's what you should focus on, and that'll drive you.
Thank you, Heather and Elizabeth. Thank you for sharing that personal story. What is our passion, what motivates us, and what we're trying to make the world a better space for others in our community and for those close to us. So thank you so much for sharing your personal motivations. We have a question from Barb. This might be for you, Mary, but I will leave it open to everyone. Can you speak more to the COMS candidacy exam?
Sure. I'll just say something, but I'd love to hear as well what Elizabeth and Heather had to say about their experience. So at Royal Rose, we have a candidacy exam universities have both candidacies and comprehensive exams. Because we are interdisciplinary, we have candidacy exams. And whereas the comprehensive exams, which are more common, actually traditional PhDs do both, it's the comprehensive knowledge of your given area. But in our case, we're interdisciplinary, so we're bringing together many domains of knowledge around a particular problem. One of the things we do at our candidacy exam, they're all a bit different across the 100+ universities across Canada, but many of them, the proposal for your dissertation is presented formally at the candidacy exam and voted upon. In our case, it's more like a draft of the candidates, more like a draft of your dissertation proposal. And we have an opportunity for a good 3-hour discussion around that proposal. And then it's more than that. It's discussing your domains of knowledge that interact together in order for you, we're assessing, if you will, your understanding of the context that your work will occur. It's a written exam first, and then it's a 3-hour oral exam with your supervisor, 2 committee members, and with me chairing. Over to you, Heather and Elizabeth, to talk about your experience.
I struggled with my candidacy exam. I wanted to tear my hair out multiple times. I thought many times I was ready to go, only to have the committee come back with more revisions, more changes. So I think it was probably on the 3rd or 4th attempt when all committee members were happy with the written product, and that they felt I was ready to go to the oral part that Mary described. I probably found that piece the most challenging, other than the stats course that Elizabeth talked about, of the most challenging piece of the program. But the committee is there to support you and help you. And if they don't think you're ready to go to that oral piece, they will not let you. So I think that was the part in my case. There were still some questions around, theory and methodology and things that needed to be tightened up. And when I look now at the first few drafts of those candidacy exams, I'm actually sitting here going, oh my God, I can't believe I thought that was good, because it really wasn't at a spot that it was ready. So yeah, I did shed tears. I did eat a lot of chips, and I did really stress about the candidacy exams. But the back and forth and the feedback and that type thing is really to set you up to pass the oral part. And it's also, the candidacy exams sets you up so that you have a solid plan and foundation to then start writing the monograph like Liz did, or start putting together the portfolio or whatever it might be. So I don't say that to scare people, but I think it's important to be realistic and know what the challenges are as well. I don't know, maybe Liz loved her candidacy exams and thought it was a wonderful experience.
Sorry, Heather, I got through in one skid. But I did. So I finished my coursework at Royal Roads, and then I immediately went to the University of Alberta, and I took a master's level course on narrative inquiry only. So I went to the summer course in Edmonton right after, just to solidify, because I knew I wanted that to be my methodology. And I'd done bits and pieces, and I did my directed study with 2 of Canada's top narrative inquiry people, which was excellent too, but I was really afraid of mucking it up, like really afraid of doing this wrong. And so I went to the University of Alberta and did a course just on narrative inquiry. And while I was there, I finished my written stuff and then came back and did my candidacy exam right away. So I think that's why I made it in the 3.25 year mark, because I just made it through that candidacy exam like end of August, early September. And then I was out the gate. My 3rd year was, you know, writing and collecting and doing and just living that written experience.
Thank you, Heather, Elizabeth, and Mary. We have one more question in the chat box, and it is from Willem. And the question is like, what was your professional relation with your academic supervisor? Can you speak a bit more about how that worked out in the practice over those 3 years plus?
These are all really good questions, and I wish I had to ask these when I was thinking about the program. So as Mary said, your supervisor does not have to be a Royal Roads faculty member. And for me, the most important thing was to have a supervisor who really understood heart transplant and who, you know, knew things not just from a scientific academic point of view, but knew it from a personal standpoint. So I was fortunate enough to be supervised from somebody who is a professor at UBC, and she herself had received 2 heart transplants. So she had the personal connection that was really important to me. I had knew her previously to starting the PhD and asking her to supervise me. Her and I had sat on a bunch of patient committees and different things like that. I think it was a really great pairing because, again, going back to that passion, she was very passionate about patients' involvement, patients' advocacy, and patient rights. That's not to say we didn't butt heads over the course of 3 years. You know, there was things that I wanted to do that she was like, Heather, this will not work. You cannot use 4 methodologies in one paper. And I was like, no, this is a great idea. But we're still very good friends. We still work on a lot of projects together. She's also on the postdoc PhD, the grant that I'm working on. And, you know, she really opened a lot of doors for me and connected me with a lot of people in the field that, you know, was very beneficial. The other thing I will mention, and she would say this too, is that while I felt that I learned so much from her, she would say it was reciprocal, and she learned just as much as I did. So, I had a great relationship with her, and still do. But definitely had some challenges along the way, and I think that's totally normal. They want to push you and make sure that you do your best. So
I had the best.
Oh, sorry, Liz.
I had the best supervisor. I'd Mary. So I had within Royal Roads. So Mary was my supervisor. Mary kind of let me be to the most part. I would check in on our scheduled times to check in, and she helped me find some extra committee members and helped out that way. Yeah, the actual committee selection and finding people to be on your team, that I think that was stressful. Like the candidacy exam was not stressful to me. Finding my committee was stressful, definitely stressful for me, because I got rejected a number of times by people. Like I think I had 6 or 7 rejections of people as I'm trying to find somebody who might want to do narrative, like support a narrative inquiry based methodology. So it was a bit of a feat, but Mary was very supportive and she gave really great advice, and it was terrific.
Thank you, Liz. And if I could just add there, you know, choosing the supervisor is probably the single most important aspect of the doctorate, because you want to get the right fit. It's not just the content expertise, but you want to have somebody that you can work with. I mean, ideally, our program is set up for those people who have been, you know, working in a progressive position, in leadership roles in many ways, at least for 10 years or so, sometimes a little less. And therefore your supervisor, it's not the same as when, you know, many programs you come out of your master's at, you know, you're 23 or so, and you know, our students tend to be older than that, and the relationship in many ways, I believe, needs to be more collegial. You're working together in many ways as colleagues, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're choosing a supervisor who can tell you when you're wrong, right? Like that doesn't mean that you need to fit your work to what the supervisor wants. In fact, in our program, it's the other way around. We're working to support you on what your project and passion is. But at the same time, if things are going off of the rails, our role as supervisors is to make sure that doesn't happen. So choosing the supervisor in terms of the fit as well as the content. But just to go back to this more collegial relationship, for example, truly, I learned as much from Liz during this supervision. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about narrative inquiry in a much deeper way by reading her drafts. And in fact, after Liz finished her dissertation, I met with Clandindon, who was the primary narrative inquiry writer that she used. And we had several more discussions about narrative inquiry. So just an example of this kind of co-learning way in which supervision can occur. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, Liz and Heather. And just notice that it's 9:59 and we haven't started talking about the application process. So I just want to acknowledge if people have to go and you have other commitments, thank you so much for being with us this morning. And we are going to start a little bit longer to talk about the application process and add any other relevant information for you. So before I start talking about the application process, Mary, Elizabeth, maybe Liz have to go, looks like. Thank you, Liz, for being with us this morning. And I believe Heather also might be in the back end, or she had to go as well. So Liz and Elizabeth, Liz and Heather, thank you so much for coming this morning. And I guess, Mary, it's you and I, and we are going to chat about the application process.
Excellent. Yeah, you and I and Carol are still on.
Awesome. That is fantastic. So now, how to apply. So when you're looking into the DSocSci program, you need to have the following admissions requirements. The first one is a master's degree in a social science or related field is required for this program. We are also looking for evidence experience related to the degree program. Normally, we are looking at least 10 years or a minimum of 10 years of work experience with level decision making authority. Mary, can you maybe unpack a little bit more how that looks like, that work experience that we are looking for into this program?
I'm sorry, would you say that again?
Oh, my apologies. So I was wondering if you can expand a little more in that work experience that we are looking for the applicants in this program. So we are looking for 10 years of work experience, and we're looking for some at the senior level decision-making authority.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. So the 10 years is flexible. It's just the idea of letting the applicant know you want to have significant work experience. Now, you know, it certainly could be less than 10 years, probably more often than not. We see applicants who, over the years in their work experience, have progressed like when they show their resume, which is part of the application process, you can see as they went from one position perhaps to another with increased responsibility or increased impact. And in your application, you want to try and convey that as well. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to do your research in the area that exactly where you were working in, but it's rather to show that there was progression in your roles over time, assuming more of leadership. And a lot of times applicants will talk about leadership positions on a volunteer basis as well. It's not just paid employment, but I've had applicants who have worked in communities and have taken responsibility, for example, of fairly big initiatives, but and sometimes they're not even big, but they've changed some aspect of their community, or they change some aspect of their organization. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you, Mary. And the other piece that we are going to be looking for is an interdisciplinary applied research proposal that reflects current research foreseen in the College of Interdisciplinary Studies or the school within the Faculty of Social and Applied Science at Royal Road University. And how to apply, the most exciting piece. So now you're ready to go for hopefully we can get to know you in the following intake or the next year. So the first piece, you need to complete an online application. And once you complete that online application, you need to submit the following documents. The first one are official transcripts. To be official, they have to come either in a sealed envelope or they have to be sent from the institution that you complete your undergrad and your master's degree. Detailed resume. This is not a job resume, so we are not looking for those 2 pages. Actually, we want to get to know you. And this is the first document that you have to tell us more about who you are, tell us about your story. So we want to know about your credit and non-credit education. We want to know about your work experience. We want to see that progression that Mary was talking about it in your work environment. As Mary said, we also want to know about your volunteer activities, anything that you have been doing in the community or something that you are currently doing. And if you have any leadership experience through the community, that is very important and relevant for us. Are you part of any affiliation or association? Please feel free to add all of those details in your resume. The next document is a writing sample. It can be either a thesis chapter, an academic or a professional report or publication that you have done in the past. So there's a few options available for you. And then the following one is 3 letters of reference. They can be academic or professional. We always share with people if you have a personal connection with those people, just tell them the story, why you're applying to this program, why is this program so important for you, so they can relate to a specific either a project that you work together or a specific interaction, and they can highlight why you would be a good candidate for the DSocSci program. Mary, anything that you would like to add here?
Yes, when you're doing your proposal, remember it's a preliminary proposal. It's not that we're expecting you to write, a 20-page document that plans out every aspect of your proposal. And you also want to keep in mind that that can change. What we're really looking for is your thought process and your academic writing, that you have the ability to put together a concept. And then we're also from that wanting to make sure that it's, that we can accommodate that, that it's not too far out of what our capacity to support you is. And that means often, like if somebody said that they wanted to do nuclear physics, we couldn't do it, for example. It has to be within the social sciences and how the sciences come together in an interdisciplinary fashion. The other thing is when I said want to see your academic writing, which means it's really helpful for those when those applicants include, some citation and references, and it lets us know that it's not just from your head that you've written something, but that you've, consulted some documentation that helps to support your rationale for why you want to do this, for example.
Thank you, Mary, for the details. So now key dates. Our next program, it starts January 9, 2023, and the deadline is coming up this fall, October 3rd, 2022. So we have here at Railroads the opportunity that you can start your application, and you have the time from now on to October to complete and submit all the documents. So if there is something that you're passionate and you want to start this process, I highly encourage you to start the process as soon as possible and start adding those documents as you collect them.
Andrea, may I add there that I'm very open to speaking to you individually, personally, as you consider whether this is the right degree for you or not, or to talk about your proposal. I probably end up speaking to most people before they apply. Not everybody. Sometimes I receive an adjudication file that I haven't spoken to the individual in advance. The other thing is that Rhonda White in admissions is really she's a senior enrollment advisor. It's really helpful to speak to her before you speak to me, because I will speak more to your research and the academic part. But Rhonda can go through all of the other things, many that would be important to you, deadlines, who to contact in relation to funding, etc.
Thank you, Mary. And if you want to connect with Rhonda, as Mary mentioned, you can reach out to her at learn-that-more@royalroads.ca. And I'm going to put that information in a little bit in our following slide. But Rhonda will be a great contact for you or anyone in the enrollment team to learn more about application deadlines, the documents that you need to submit, any funding available. And as Mary said, Rhonda will be a key person to contact you with different people across university. She can always facilitate also to get you in touch with a current student or alumni, or working directly with Mary as when you are ready to talk about that proposal. We have a question here about if they're interested to apply into the following intake. So it will be not the January 2023, but I guess it will be January 2024. When will you recommend to that person to start applying? Because they could start applying now if they're and absolutely you could.
Yeah. We do have people that apply in advance of the Yes.
Okay. So
Okay.
The short answer is you can start your application as soon as you are ready. And if you are looking away into 2024, maybe it's a good time to start talking with Rhonda and connecting with the different parties across the university and start looking about funding available for you and your project.
I should just add there, it's a competitive process as well. We have more applications or more interest than we have spaces for. So one advantage of an early application is, sometimes can be adjudicated before we get the rush of others.
Thank you for sharing that with me. So as Mary said, Rhonda and our enrollment team are here to support you, and they can talk to you more about details about the program, application processes, and walk you through admissions requirement, put you in contact with our campus and student services, and connect you with faculty or alumni. So if you want to connect with our enrollment advisors, they're available from Monday to Friday from 8:30 to 4:30 Pacific time, and you can reach them by phone number or by email. And that is our last slide. So I'm going to keep this one, but at this point, Mary, anything else that you would like to add before we complete this session today? Oh, you're muted.
Probably just to say that certainly welcome discussion. So don't hesitate to email me if you would like to talk further and specifically about your research, but try and do the talk with Rhonda first, because she will be answering so much more in terms of the operational and administrative aspects of the program. You know, think very carefully about your decision. It's a lot of time and energy and money. And at the same time, our students and graduates have found it a rewarding experience. You know, PhD and doctorate programs across North America are notorious for having a really large portion of the students not finish. And we're not in that same category. Of course, some people have to drop out for various life reasons, but we find that most people stay in the program. So our retention rate actually is better than the norm for doctorate programs. And the reason I mention that is because it's kind of an indication of people's resilience and willpower and desire to have this degree. And as you can see from the two people that we featured today, you know, the degree has been helpful to them in their career. And that's one of the questions you have to ask yourself as you're thinking about doing this doctorate or really any other doctorate. And that's, how will I use it? What can I do differently with this degree that I couldn't otherwise? So big, important questions for you to ask yourself before you jump into such a big commitment. That's all. That's it for me, Andrea. And I just welcome you to apply.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Caroline, Francisco, Heather, and Elizabeth, and anyone that spent the last hour and a bit with us to learn more about the DSocSci program. As Mary said, if you have any questions, please connect with us. Please send us an email, and we will make sure that the correct person is connecting with you. So with that, I hope you to have a wonderful rest of Thursday, wherever you are located across the world, and you enjoy your day. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Andrea.
Bye-bye.